normal day as a Sheffield Wednesday fan. Just one day. That was one of the strangest press conferences for anything I have ever watched. And we will get into all of it. I will say, for the people who thought I was too negative yesterday about the new manager, I wasn't trying to be negative. I was being cautiously optimistic, right? Laying all the facts out there. Watch the whole video and you'll probably tell that, yes, I might have sounded negative at parts. I was backing the manager. And today's press conference from that side has done a lot to reinforce my views that this is actually a pretty decent move. However, that was not the talking point from this press conference. Chansiri and some of his comments definitely were. So the press conference starts with Xisco being asked about how he feels about being the manager, quite a standard start. He gets straight in two massives, right? He gets in massive club, massive fan base. He's ticked both boxes off the you have to be Sheffield Wednesday manager and say these things box. That's an inside joke. We're not actually serious on that. It's just a thing that became a thing, all right? And it starts relatively well in that regard, starts upbeat. Chansiri starts by thanking the other managers that applied for the process, says how excellent of candidates they were and how it was a tough decision to decide on who the next Sheffield Wednesday manager would be, but he'd have to go for the best. Now, I must mention one thing. He uses the words right next to the new manager. Oh, God. Many had a better CV than him. Just what? What? Has it been watching my video where I said the CVs were much better on it? That's what I said yesterday, but he does come around and say that he thought he was the best choice. I get what he's saying, but just look at the side eye from Xisco when he says this. It's like you're reevaluating all your decisions in a moment. Now, a reporter was in there that asked a question about Darren Moore. Now, this I'm not a massive fan of. I think this is a bit of a setup given all that's going on in the statements. I also think it could have possibly been handled better. Here's how it goes. So the Sky reporter says, do you understand the surprise of some fans about the sacking of Darren Moore? Basically, it's almost as if that reporter had not been following the news for the past few weeks and not done his research, that Chansiri had already just clarified all of this and we were moving on. It's not the time to be asking those questions. It feels like you're trying to dig it up a little bit there. Chansiri then comes out. It's like he's not really understood the question to start. He just reaffirms his statement, says he's already spoken about all of this, and says that he's there to protect his staff. And he's also there to protect the club. So when people come out and try and damage the club and say things in the media or on social media, he feels like he has an obligation to protect the club. And that's where it could have potentially ended, right? Yeah, that's where it ended. He could have just gone, yep, we're going to move on now. This is a new era for Sheffield Wednesday. I'm sat with my new manager. Moving on. Thank you very much for your question. He didn't do that. For the next 10 minutes, he proceeds to go off about a certain situation with Carlton Palmer. This is a direct quote from that interview. I don't understand how you try to say you love the club, but you only try to damage it. When we start to do bad, you come out wanting the fans to attack me, wanting attention. I think he has a problem with mentality. Whatever he says, because the fans like him, he can make them believe it. I invite him to come and talk to me face to face if what he says is the truth. Don't hide behind social media. I paraphrase that slightly. And obviously there's a language barrier. It's very difficult. It's one of those things where you could have really done with his assistant saying, let's just move on. Let's just move on here. Chansiri, all right? Let's move on. However, what I will say is Palmer has come out and said all these things, and I don't blame somebody for standing up for themselves and standing up for the club. If Palmer's going to say it, Chansiri's got a right to respond. That's where I kind of sit on that. You might call me a fence sitter on that one. I feel like everybody's entitled to their own opinion. Palmer can say it. He sort of said these things about Darren Moore, but he's not backed it up. So it's very difficult for us to see that when Chansiri first was trying to protect Moore, but then when Palmer was saying these things, he turned around and went, actually, no, I'm going to make a statement. This is what happened with Darren Moore. We haven't seen that on the other end. That camp is quiet. So if you look at it from that perspective, I don't blame him for getting defensive about this. It makes sense to me. You want to protect the club. He feels like his words get twisted. I bet he feels that sometimes he can't do right for doing wrong. However, this lasted for over 10 minutes. A 10-minute rant. It took half the press conference, more than half of the press conference, this one question, which is why I have to say, why would somebody not step in here? This is all about media, and I hate media training because you don't get the you don't get as realistic an answer. But this is where it could have been a case of somebody going, okay, we need to move on now. We need to change the subject here because it is over half a press conference, and what's meant to be about moving forward has been dragged into the past. And I think it was a bad question from the reporter, and I think it should have been cut off a lot quicker on Chansiri's end. What I will say is I think Xisco followed that very, very well afterwards. So he comes out and he talks about it now, he wanting to put all that in the past. It's his era at Sheffield Wednesday. It's the start of a new era. He spoke really, really well. You know, when we were talking about the vibes, and that was being repeated a few times. I can see it. I can see he's got a good energy, and that's what you kind of want. You want to be excited by your manager when he starts speaking. But he also talks about the concept of togetherness and needing everybody together and having everybody at this club together. And that's not what it's been, obviously, in this Darren Moore departure. So talking about bringing that togetherness into the club, that positivity is going to go a long way. It's interesting, he's asked about the coaching team, and he says he's going to use the coaching staff that are in place, but he can also have talks with the chairman about anything he needs, really. So you can probably expect to see a couple of his own staff coming in as well there. When asked about what he says to the players, he was talking about how he talks about the realities of the championship and the place that we are in now and how we need to improve, basically. Talks about having a good process and something to build on. He wants them to enjoy it. He uses the words not necessarily have a happy life, but enjoy it on the pitch, you know, enjoy it on the training ground, actually enjoy the process while working hard. Enjoy working hard, basically. Enjoy your job. Enjoy what you're paid to do. I like that. I like the idea that football becomes a lot of things and we say a lot of things about it, but it should be, for those footballers, about enjoying what you're there to do. He also keeps referring back to the fans, which again is very clever. This is more media training that he's had, you can tell. He talks about the fact that there's going to be a demand there from the fans, and the players need to realise that and respect that. I watched his interview as well, which was separate from the press conference, and he was talking about how he seems to have a good early connection with Chansiri, how happy he is to be at the club. All the right key words are coming from him, and he has got an infectious personality so far, so I'd prefer that than somebody absolutely boring, and we've had them. He says he enjoys the part of management about offering solutions to players, because that can be quite hard when you're a player, and he's been there. So being a manager that if they've got an issue or they're not quite doing something tactically right, or they need to develop, him being the person with the solutions, he has very much taken that I am the manager, I'm the man at the top, come to me, I'll sort you a solution out. Again, another positive. I want to make a side note as well. He was walking up the chair to meet the players, I think, in the video. He was walking behind the chairman. Chairman goes through the door. Xisco sort of stops and opens the door and holds it open like he's going to let the cameraman through. And I just thought that's sort of like a subtle sign of respect. And I thought you can sort of judge how people are from the way they hold themselves in certain situations, you know, subtle cues like that. And that was just something that stood out to me. But yeah, he spoke really well in that interview and talked about how important it will be on the training ground, and we're all going to push forward. So saying all of the right things. I don't want to knock Chansiri too hard, by the way, and I also want to state that Carlton Palmer's got a right to say things, but if he's going to carry on talking about this Darren Moore thing, he needs to get Darren Moore involved. Something needs to come out of that. He can't just say, oh, well, Darren's told me this, Darren's told me that. It does just cause more drama in that situation, so we do need to either hear something of more substance, or Chansiri has got a right to defend himself, you know? It'd be interesting to know what you think on that one, but I think we can all probably agree, and I'm not blaming him for it. It's one of those things, somebody should have stepped in. We need somebody there at the club to be able to step in these situations. That shouldn't have gone on for over 10 minutes. It sucked all the air out of the room. I can imagine everybody there felt really, really awkward. I felt awkward watching it. I didn't necessarily disagree with what he was saying. He's talking about protecting the club, but it didn't need to go on for over 10 minutes when we're there to talk about how positive this move forward with this new manager is going to be. But yeah, the more I think about it, the more I am sitting in, and you know, you're starting to get giddy about the thought of the season and pre-season, and it's all kicking off very soon. If signings start coming, that could get very exciting. This is just one of those crazy things that's happened in the world of Sheffield Wednesday today, but hopefully in the near future we'll have something a little bit more positive to talk about, and we'll be talking about how, oh, we signed that player, we've linked with this player, that sort of thing. That will be exciting. If you enjoy this kind of videos, just me talking about Sheffield Wednesday, talking about general championship football maybe, let me know in the comments. Be sure to like the video, and as always, we'll have a chat in the comments. I want to know what you thought about this press conference, what your first impressions of Xisco are after this initial interview has been released and the press conference. Let me know all of that down below. But for now, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, do all those things, and keep watching right here on Dexterity Box.